What is happening, everybody? Man, that thing popped up quick. It's kind of crazy, doing these live videos. You never know, like it'll start to boot up a little bit. I don't even know if I'm even in frame here. Hang on. Get this freaking thing sorted out. First of all, Merry Christmas or whatever, I don't know, doesn't offend you. 2 a.m., baby, what's going on? Whatever holiday greeting doesn't offend you. Have a good one of those. Merry Christmas, as far as I'm concerned. What's up, everybody? Justin Baker, Merry Christmas to you. Zephyr R&D, what up? Says, what's up, Professor Mason? Travis Lane, Merry Christmas back at you, my friend. All right, so make sure I'm not missing anybody. I don't think I did. Hopefully not. So one of the things I wanted to talk about for this late night edition of Mopar Chat is, we're coming into, about a year into having the Demon, and, I don't know, some of the wool may be starting to pull off of some folks' eyes with that car. And I'm speaking on this from somebody who has spent quite a bit of time with the Demon myself, and both in stock and modded conditions. I'll be them in terrible density altitudes. Make sure I'm not missing anybody here. Marcel Industries, what up? Stephen Vanoy, what's up? Justin Baker, what is happening? Let's see. Cleaver Enterprise just left the drag strip. Merry Christmas to all. Yes, Travis Lane Cuda. That's coming up next, I promise you. Robert Pezzi, happy holidays. To everybody, happy holidays. See, Vince, what up? Real Racing, what's up? Let's see, 2 a.m. baby. Do I still have my Scat Pack? No, I do not. It was actually an SRT, and she is not around anymore. Let's see. Symphonics is asking, has any stock Demon run the 965 Dodges claimed? Yes, it's the one Leah Pritchett drove when they set the record in negative 200 or 2,000, I should say, density altitude, which is what I want to talk about tonight. So at least to get us kicked off. So here's the thing, guys, look, the Demon, as great as it is, to be honest with you, isn't as great as it could be. And some of that has to do with the efficiency of the supercharger that it has. Other things may revolve around weight savings, stuff like that. But the reality is a lot of folks are starting to get the impression, and this is coming from other Demon owners that I've spoken with, that they may have got taken a little bit, that 965 claim was a little bit too optimistic. So let me walk you through how to get a stock Demon to run 965s. First of all, you've got to have unbelievably good weather. And what I mean by good weather is a density altitude that's hovering somewhere around negative 1,500 to 2,000. Second thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to run something along the lines of MS-109 fuel, a highly oxygenated race fuel. Again, getting more oxygen into the cylinders through that fuel. Any other fuel is simply not going to get you there. If you look at the specs, I won't bore you with that. Let's stay on topic here. I'll get all, white lab coat and chalkboard on you. But anyway, you need a lightweight driver, somebody that's really no more than about 115, 120 pounds. And you need to not have a rear seat and not have a passenger seat. And oh yeah, by the way, you're going to have a track prep that is unbelievable. So my understanding is when the Demon was running, or when the Demon ran its halo pass of 965, the density altitude was unimaginably low, basically minus 2,000-ish. And so to put that in perspective, for every 1,000 feet above or below sea level conditions, you're looking at a 3% gain or loss in power. It may not make that big of a difference, but it really does. Or you might not think it makes that big of a difference, but it really does. 6% when you're talking about, a car making 800 plus horsepower, well, that's basically 50 horsepower right there. That'll definitely help you get down the track. But the idea here is to have absolute perfect optimal conditions. But in this case, here's the problem. to have a 965 as your number, you can't really do that because you haven't corrected it to sea level. Back in the day, all 0 to 60 times and quarter mile times you would read, like in Road and Track or Motor Trend, they were all corrected, and they may still be. I don't know. I really haven't kept up with it, but at least from my experience, they were corrected numbers. Well, that 965 is an uncorrected number in conditions that are realistically unrealistic in the real world. I mean, that's basically a set of conditions that you'll only get for about a month out of the year if you live in an area that is close to sea level or at sea level. So, that 965 realistically would be corrected to somewhere around, say, a 985, 995 in real world conditions. And if they would have at least claimed that number, then you might have a leg to stand on. All these cars that are going out running 10.0s or 10.1s, well, it would make sense. But the problem is that those guys running 10.0s or 10.1s, when they correct to sea level, still aren't coming up near that 965. Well, that's why you have to correct to the DA that car was running, and that would be basically minus 2,000. And if you start to do that correction, you can start to see those numbers get a little bit closer. But, I got to looking at it a little bit farther. And of course, I've been keeping up with demonology, as you would expect that I would be. My friend, my brother from another mother. And, I saw that, he went down to Florida and was racing the 720. And I get that, he was having some issues with the Demon, which, by the way, I also had similar problems with the Demon that I was running. But everybody else was running 10.0s as well. One of the weird things, though, that I don't think anybody's really caught on to, or at least I didn't see in the comments, was the fact that one of those Demons blew its differential up at the drag strip, which I found to be a bit of a, I don't know, I found that to be a bit cringy. You can't have a car go out there and blow its rear end out when it's supposedly built for drag racing. So, you get into the whole conversation about diff braces and everything else. I'm pretty much a staunch proponent. If you've got a Hellcat or even a 392 car, you might want to invest in one of those if you're taking that thing to the drag strip often. And also, so far as I can tell with the Hellcat, I had the Performance first gen bracket on there that my good friend Ray gave me. And I'm actually going with, that one's already been pulled off, and I'm going to go with the Extreme Duty Performance brace, mainly because, I'm going to be putting this Hellcat through a lot on the drag strip. I need all the support back there that I can get. So, but at any rate, let me get in here a little bit. Let me chat up you guys, see what y'all are up to, see if you have any questions. This mosquito, man. To send that thing straight back to hell. Let's see. Talked a little bit about that 965 MZM, saying I gapped a black key Hellcat in my stock Camaro SS. That's actually a fun race, by the way. Playing with the Hellcat with the black key against 392 cars and Camaros and stock Mustangs is actually a lot of fun, because the Hellcat with the black key, you still get all the torque down low. You just don't get any horsepower up top. So it's like having just a well sorted out 426 stroker engine, like a street oriented stroker in your car. It's still an 11-second car in the right conditions with that black key, but it's a lot of fun. So glad to hear you had some fun with that. Let's see. Real Racing Productions asks, engine trans tune versus stock 18 Camaro SS roll race up to 140. Who wins? Let's see. I guess you're saying engine and trans tune versus stock 18 Camaro. It'd be close. I haven't ever done a roll race against a Camaro, at least not to any real amount of speed, aside from Riley's old 1LE, but that's really not a good comparison. It would be close. I would say that if the 392's got a trans tune and an engine tune, it'll be real close up to about 140, and then aerodynamics start to take their toll, and Camaro would probably start tiptoeing away from it. But I don't know, the only way to do it is to take that thing to a closed course event and try it out. Let's see. Joaquin says, hello, Mopar Messiah. Well, thank you for that. Really glad you're on tonight. Glad you're here with me. Let's see. 2 a.m. Baby saying, do I think FCA will release a new 9-speed next year? Well, HP has technically a 9-speed. I don't see any reason why they shouldn't if they've got one that'll actually handle the power. Realistically, if they're going to release anything new, they're going to have to do something about the actual ability of that transmission to manage power. If it is up around, I'd like to see it up around 1,000 Newton meters, which would, if you see HP 70, by the way, the 70 is just basically short for 700. So 700 Newton meters is how they rate them. 900 is for the HP 90. The HP 70 at 700 Newton meters is basically, 500-ish pound-feet of torque, real capacity. A lot of folks haven't really found the true capacity. There's that mosquito. Did you see that? Anyway, a lot of people just are running the HP 90 and having no issues with them whatsoever. But if they do release a 9-speed in this case, it's going to have to be somewhere around at least 900 Newton meters, as just like the existing HP 90 is, or more. I'd like to see 1,000. So, 750 pound-feet of torque, actual holding capacity, if they do that. Let's see. Michael Smith, seriously, why hasn't the Challenger Corvette or hell, the Mustang come with turbos? Well, or come stock with turbos? Well, EcoBoost withstanding. Don't be surprised if you don't see that eventually. A lot of what I'm hearing is that not necessarily for the Corvette, for the C8, but for cars like the Challenger and for the Camaro, at some point, that technology is going to supersede the V8, not only in terms of actual power, but just in terms of the ability to mass produce them and have them be warrantable under use, misuse, and abuse conditions. So, but right now the V8 is king, and most enthusiasts prefer the V8, not only for the instant torque hit, but for the actual sound as well. One of the things that that manufacturers have done is they'll pit their cars up against their competition in focus groups, and V8s win that hands down every time. Ask FCA Marketing about the Viper on that one, by the way. Let's see. The Revolution. Thoughts on Advanced Fuel Dynamics plug-and-play E85 for $392? I don't have any. Haven't really seen anybody have a lot of success with it long-term. HP Tuners is in the process of homologating some operating systems together to make the actual flex fuel work from the ECU standpoint. But unfortunately, I don't have a lot of experience with that system. And to be honest with you, a lot of folks that I have spoken with that have toyed with the flex fuel for Mopars have run into some problem with them here and there, whether you run into hot start issues. Typically 85 is known for cold start issues, but some of these other systems have had hot start issues. They've had another weird problem where they will not be able to recognize the ethanol content in the fuel. So it'll start to basically it'll start to think basically that it's got 93 octane in it anyway. So it'll revert back to the 93 octane fueling tables, which is not a good idea if you got 85. So there are some workarounds to making that system work. The problem is that revolves around the knock sensors, the same way that the Demon works. And so when you start to get into making a system like that work, and what I'm talking about is a system that relies on the knock sensors, the problem with Hemis is that they suffer from false knock. So if you numb the knock sensors to keep it out of false knock, you're also keeping it from recognizing real knock and going into the E85, or I'm sorry, the 93 octane fueling and timing parameters. So then if you have 93, it may still think that it has E85 in it. So that creates a whole other set of problems. So a lot of folks are having issues with it, but it's nothing that can't be engineered out. Let's see. Justin Baker saying, yeah, there are no parts out there for those differentials. Trust me, I'm Dr. Differential. I tell you what, and then he's saying you got to replace the whole diff. And this is something, Justin, that it has been driving me nuts about Mopar for a while, is that is a non-serviceable differential and you cannot swap gear ratios in it, which it absolutely floors me, because every 5.7 and every 392 car out there deserves to have a 331 gear option, and it's just not out there, and it makes me crazy. Hey, Nell saying 6.4 manifold on a 5.7, gains to be had. Would you recommend this or do another manifold or ported stock 7? Stick with your ported stock 7. Some guys have reported some gains with going with the 6.4, but you do need to install a window switch to actuate the short runners. There are some guys that have done it. I think they may have picked up 15 horsepower on the big end, but realistically, if you clean up that 5.7, you'll be in pretty good shape. I would probably suggest you probably have a little bit better torque down low with that 5.7 as well. Let's see. Travis Lang asking, have you looked at the Performance HD diff brace? Yes, I have, and it's on the way. United States Postal Service says I should get it in the next couple of days. And I'm really looking forward to getting that sorted out, as well as the drive shaft situation. I will say this. I have ordered a DSS dampened drive shaft for my car, and it is on the way. I have given up trying to go with this other manufacturer. I've run into literally too many problems with the latest shaft that was sent to me. Again, I don't want to mention any names at this point, but the reality is that I got to go in a different direction. And in talking to some guys that not only do quite a bit of drag racing, but roll racing as well. They do the half-mile roll events, half-mile standing events, and mile events. That's the drive shaft that they're going with. That's who they trust the safety of their car and themselves with. So that's where I'm going to go. Always want to help folks out where I can, and try to, smaller companies, if they've got something special going on, I definitely want to be a part of their success. But in this case, just going to have to go a different route. And hopefully it works out. Let's see. Vince is asking, B, how is it you have mosquitoes in your house? Do you have potted plants with saucers underneath? I've seen you kill them before. Actually, no. What it is we're hanging out in the lounge, actually. This is part of, technically, it's actually part of my garage, if you want to be real technical. But if I've got the garage door open and I come into this thing every once in a while, they'll sneak in that way. So those little bastards are crafty. Let's see. Zephyr R&D asks, what do you think of proper R&D trans service, i.e. to flush or not to flush, etc.? I'm a bit of a stickler when it comes to keeping up with fluid flushes. If the trans, they say you can let these things go indefinitely with in between flushing the trans, but I like to see them flushed around 50,000 miles, about every 50,000, even with the synthetics that are in the modern transmissions. If you're pushing the car really hard, probably a good idea to get them swapped out, especially if you're doing a lot of towing. Say if you've got a truck, did I get that motherfucker? Come here. If you're doing a lot of towing, if you're doing a lot of road racing, anything like that, good idea to swap them out. I like to see 50 to 65-ish. If it's just a daily and you're not really beating on it, then I really wouldn't sweat it too much. Swap it out at about like 85. But I don't like to take it much farther than that, even on cars that are babied. Let's see. Symphonics is saying, I'm considering buying a 5th gen Camaro Z28. Any chance that car gains in value in the future? It's kind of rare, and I don't believe any more 7-liter engines will be produced anytime soon. Well, that's a great question. The car is kind of rare, but it's not Copo Camaro kind of rare. Not saying that the Copo would increase in value either. It's just if you left it bone stock and didn't really beat on it too much, I won't say it'll go up in value per se, but I will say that it will hold its value better than any other Camaro that you can buy, and that includes any of the ZL1s. I love that car. That's one of the cars that actually broke my heart back in the day, because I had my heart set on one only to find out that they were going to come in at about $70-something thousand. if you can find one that's in great shape that hasn't really been beaten on, it would be a lot of fun. It'd be a great car to have in the garage for sure. Let's see. Justin Baker, yep. He's yeah, he kicked his HP 70 on his turbo Ram, and they aren't cheap. But I've got the tools to rebuild them now. You know the truck? Yes, I do. Absolutely. Can't wait to get that one. Get that cam in that truck and see how much power we can really make with that Ram. Let's see. Show me Mopar. B Mason, 2 arms up. Diff brace on my 392 Scat Challenger. No kidding. Really, my Scat is drag strip junkie. Trying to get to low 11s this year. You recommend a diff brace? Man, you know, for 392, not necessarily. I mean, if you get that car out in a low DA on a real sticky tire, you might benefit a little bit from the diff brace. One thing I did notice is that my Hellcat did seem a bit more planted with the diff brace attached to it. Might be a bit of placebo effect going on there, but man, if I didn't know any better, I'd swear that thing was planted just a little bit better. I will say that it certainly can't hurt anything. And if, you know, if you decide to go with a power adder later or something like that, it would probably be a good idea at that point just to keep that diff from rocking around in there too much. But yeah, really, I never had one on mine and it seemed to do really well. Would it have done better with the diff brace? Man, I don't know. I would have liked to have found out though, but I was running the BMR lower trailing arms and then later went to Spawn as well. So I didn't really have a whole lot of wheel hop with that car, which is another thing that the diff brace is purported to help, but I don't really know that I noticed much of a difference. Show me Mopar. Hey, thank you very much. Says, Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. I appreciate it. Got the arms up. Woo! I love it. Thank you very much for the donation to the cause. I appreciate that very much. Let's see. Jim Nelson says, recommendations on best, well, I love that. Merry Christmas, you filthy animal. I love it. Jim Nelson says, recommendations on the best way to lighten up a Challenger. I know the standard seats, trunk items, etc., but what else? Man, I got to tell you, it depends on how freaky you want to get with that girl because, you know, you can get into carpet, you can get into, you know, draining your bug squirter reservoir. But there's only so much you can really do that is either cost effective. And what I'm talking about there is like, you know, carbon fiber or, you know, fenders and a hood and trunk lid. And they even have a roof lid now. But realistically, how much are you going to save? Not a whole lot. I've seen guys go as far as, you know, gutting the entire interior on the car, pulling the door skins off of them, pulling out all the electronics for the power windows and putting in a lightweight seat, no seats anywhere else. You can get as crazy as you want with weight savings. The problem is that you're still going to have a fairly heavy car even after you've gutted it. So take that for what it's worth. But if it were me, I would probably limit it to just interior stuff. You know, get your floor mats out of the car. If you've got an SRT, get the Harman Kardon box out of the back of it. Only weighs 14 pounds, but weight's weight. You can go with a lightweight battery. Get the I guess the package tray out of the trunk. What do you call that thing anyway? I guess it's the trunk thing that you flip up. Anyway, get that thing out of there. The air pump, all of that. You can bring it down with a rear seat delete, lightweight wheel and tire combo. You can pull about 150 pounds out of the car, but after that, really, honestly, after about 150, 170 pounds, unless you go on a real strict diet, that's about the only other way you can really pull weight out of that car. Let's see. Zephyr RD saying even the Bimmer guys like a V8 with their E92 M3. Awesome car. Oh, Sean Egan, thank you very much for the donation. He says he's got a 2018 Scat Pack Challenger 6-speed making 458 rear wheel horsepower. Long twos, 93 octane. What would an E85 conversion do for him? Thanks and congrats on the new Hellcat. Well, thank you very much. Truly appreciate it. So let's see. What would an E85 conversion do for you? Well, not a lot. So here's the thing. E85, the way that E85 works, it works in a number of ways, but the way that it works for the Mopars is that you will pick up torque down low. That is basically guaranteed with the 85, which is also true on LSs as well. But here's the thing. The stock camshaft profile does not really allow too much for scavenging. It's got a very wide lobe separation angle. And because of that, it's one of the reasons why you probably noticed that you picked up some good bottom end torque with your long tubes, but it probably didn't pick up a ton up top. And you picked up some bottom end torque, and it probably carried all the way across that power curve. At least that's what I've noticed with the cars with long tubes on the dyno. Here's the thing, though. The reason why E85, you won't pick up a lot of horsepower is because you've got a camshaft that doesn't really promote scavenging at high RPM too well, number one. Number two, you've got an intake manifold that simply can't flow enough air. And number three, which is tied to number two, you've got a situation with E85 where you're injecting 30 to 40% more fuel mass into the cylinder. That fuel has a lower energy content than gasoline. That's why you're injecting more fuel. But the problem with the fuel is that it displaces oxygen, something that the Hemi desperately needs from the intake manifold that it's already not getting. So you might think, okay, well, I can just throw more timing at it and maybe that'll make up the difference. Well, the problem is the timing won't make up for the difference in oxygen content that you won't have, just, atmospheric oxygen. And the second thing is that the Hemis just don't really respond to timing the way that a wedge motor does. It just really doesn't work like that. So, E85 is great. It's, if you're looking for a fuel that you can run, let's say you've got a 6-speed car and you want to be able to run it at the drag strip or in a closed circuit, and you want a fuel that is going to be safe, E85 is great. Just keep in mind that if you're running E85, please stick to the E85 protocol when it comes to oil changes. You need to cut your normal oil interval in half if you're running E85. So, but aside from that, again, I guess the short version of where I'm going with it is you'll pick up torque, not a lot of power. Yes, you can throw more timing at it. No, the car won't really respond by making a ton more power. But I think that really in the long run, where you'll find is I just don't know that it's truly going to be worth it for you. So I don't know. Let that let that kind of simmer. But that's kind of what I've seen with those. Travis Lang. Let's see. He says, marry all the CUDA, go Elephant or a twin turbo setup. I tell you what, CUDA, go Elephant or a twin, or I guess he's asking if the CUDA would go Elephant or twin turbo setup, or which one would I prefer. I would say the Elephant, mainly because I know a little bit about that Elephant supercharger. In fact, I know probably way too much than I should about the build of that Elephant supercharger, and it is a far superior unit than what comes on the Red Eye or the Demon, and a bit more efficient than the one that comes on the Hellcat. So I would say go with that one. Sean, he says he runs a diff brace on his Scat Pack, and let's see. Sean's also saying he also runs the aluminum drive shaft. Yeah, let us know what drive shaft you went with, by the way. Let's see. And Sean, he's saying he can't remember the name, but there's only one company that makes a diff brace for the Challenger. He's going with that Performance, and it's spelled P-E-R and then the number 4, M-A-N-C-E. That's where you'll find those guys. Hayden, Chris, what's up? Asking, do you like the 4.62 valve? Yes, I love the 4.62 valve. Ever seen a naturally aspirated cam full bolt-on high 12-second or faster Crown Vic? Would you ever do a Crown Vic build? I have seen. Yes, I have. I don't think the car went 12s. I want to say it went like mid to like low mid 13s. It was it was a P71 Panther, the ex-cop car. And that car, it had, I think it had Sean Highland cams, a stock intake. He wasn't running the bullet intake, and had a CNL throttle body plenum and a 70 millimeter throttle body. And I think he was running 430 gears. And I want to say that it ran, it was in the 13s. But man, did it sound good. I mean, it was fun listening to that thing wail. But then again, it probably wasn't the best tuning job I've ever seen on any car. But that being said, yeah, that thing absolutely would surprise you. It was real strong out of the hole too. Honestly, that thing was more of an eighth mile car, and really technically, I think you should have had 456s in it. But let's see. Al's Dream, is the 2018 Hellcat exhaust different than the 2015 through 17? Because my 17 Hellcat used to pop and crackle, and my 18 isn't popping or crackling. No, I don't think that exhaust is any different. Although that being said, I've seen two different exhaust configurations, Challenger versus Charger. I've seen Hellcat Chargers basically running the SRT style exhaust, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, but the popping and crackling has more to do with the ECU than anything else. Cran Man saying, damn it, when B Mason skips over your hello twice. Hold on, let me skip back. Where are you at in here, man? Where are you at, Cran Man? There he is. Said, howdy do, B Mason. Why? Howdy do. Oh, wait. Do a little hang loose for you. Howdy do. Sorry about that, man. Let's see. Let me skip back over here. I hate when I miss folks. Symphonics, thank you very much for the contribution to the cause. I appreciate it. Every little bit helps. Project Revlon is in full effect. I cannot wait until the track rental. I have got, so here's the funny thing. So the track rental is fast approaching, and I'm going to be basically herding cats for the next 3 weeks. But the cool thing about this is that the new drive shaft did I get that son of a bitch? Where is it? I swear to God. Did y'all see that? I got one of them, and I swear this thing is like, I mean, he's like Red Baron, like skill set on the flying. Anyway, I'm in such a stoked mood, but I'm going to be out of town, and I'm literally coming back into town the night before the track rental. So it's going to be, and I've got to be at the track early because I'm hosting the event. So I've got to get everything ready for the drivers meeting and all this other stuff. So, definitely looking forward to that. But yeah, the proceeds are definitely going to good use. We've got, like I say, the new drive shaft is in, the diff brace is on the way. It is, again, the extreme duty is what Performance is calling it. A little bit beefier unit than their outgoing product. So like I say, definitely looking forward to getting all that put on the car at once, and then getting it to the track to do the high-speed testing for vibration. Luke Richardson, is the Mopar going to get rid of the 392 in 2021? Man, at this point, I can't say that they will. I've heard conflicting reports that the 392 was going to be on its way out when the replacement at the time, the Giulia platform was slated to replace the Challenger and the Charger, only to then be slated to be replaced by the Ghibli platform, both of those being Maseratis. I got to tell you, I would probably say no. The 392 is such a robust engine just in its NA form. I know it has a bad rap for not handling boost very well, but there's other reasons for it not handling boost well, aside from, the apparent, glass-made pistons. But in reality, as a naturally aspirated platform, that engine is stout. So I wouldn't be looking for them to move away from the 392. What I would love to see them do is revise the intake manifold to where you don't have to basically, rotor-rooter that thing out to make it actually work for that size of an engine. Give it a slightly larger throttle body and a little bit of a tweak on the cam profile. Those things alone would pick up close to 25 horsepower for that engine, would put you solidly over 500 horsepower, and would let the thing rev out to about 6,400 RPM. Let's see. So for R&D, at Symphonics, I'm eyeing the 5th Gen Z28 as well. If y'all get one, y'all better let me know how y'all are doing with them. I love those cars. Chaos of the Unicorn, still one of my favorite screen names ever. What is your opinion on the Mopar Scat Pack kits for the 5.7 for building reliable power on the RT cars? Or is it better to go completely aftermarket for cams, heads, headers, etc.? The Scat Pack packages are actually kind of cool. I don't really have an issue with them in terms of how much power that they make versus the aftermarket. You really start getting into splitting hairs at that point. What I like about the Scat Pack packages is that you can get them with a warranty if you buy the car new, or have the, have the dealer install them. Arrington is the company that did the initial tune file, if I'm not mistaken, back in the day for those. I can't see any reason that the aftermarket couldn't do better than those packages, especially in terms of pricing. It just depends on the shop that you go with. But that being said, I can tell you this, it will definitely wake up the 5.7s. And I can also tell you that it bums me out that the Scat Pack program didn't filter down to the 392s at that point. So another reason why I like the 5.7s so much. Let's see. Clever Enterprises, best run tonight was an 822 in the 8th and a 12.9 in the quarter on the dash. 2018 Charger. Scat stock running the Aturos. What tire do you run for the strip and street to get better times? I prefer the Nitto 555R for every aspect of driving. I'll put it to like this. I've run the Mickey Thompson ET Street SS's, and I've run the Nitto Tri-5s. I prefer the Tri-5s in every single driving environment, whether it's street driving, at the drag strip, everywhere. The problem with the Mickey Thompsons is that they don't last very long if you're driving them much, if at all, on the street. And they also pretty much burn up at the drag strip as well. Now, some folks will say that they're a better drag race tire. I'm not wholly convinced that that's the case. You get the Nittos nice and hot, they'll bite every time. And here's the benefit of the Nittos over the Mickey Thompsons. There's two of them. One, obviously longevity, but two, they are really good in the rain when they're at least newer. Now, obviously, if you run them bald, no tire is going to be any good at that point. But that being said, they're a great tire all the way around, and I would never hesitate to recommend them to anybody for pretty much any car like ours. Zephyr R&D, do you know or know of Luke V at Steve White Motors? The guy runs a Challenger on the Optima Sports Car Challenge. Pretty damn cool. I have heard of him, but I don't know him personally. I know that Alex, I think, knows him pretty well. And Alex, by the way, is a big-time supporter of the Optima Ultimate Streetcar Challenge. And, definitely some interesting cars that show up for that. Tell him, man, this thing has got like ace skills. You're going to see me doing that. I'm looking neurotic. Believe me, if you can't see it on camera, there's this damn mosquito that has got just a skill set like you would not believe in terms of flight acumen. So anyway, but yeah, no, I've seen that car once only, and I love it. And the guys out there, and who knows? I'd love to see him. I'd love to see a heavyweight class, but that'll never happen. Sean Egan saying lightweight bumper supports. Yes, lightweight bumper supports, or just do away with them altogether. The only downside to that is if you do get into a wreck. And again, there's a lot of ways you can pull weight out of the car, and there's a certain level that I don't mind getting to, and then anything after that, and you're kind of splitting hairs. And basically proven that there's not a huge difference, even when you pull about 50 pounds out of these cars. There's not a huge difference in what that car is going to run at the drag strip, even for the 392 cars. So, and that's basically going back to when I did the rear seat delete on my 392 car, the SRT. Sean Egan, front sway bar removal. I tell you what, in some cars I would be okay with that, but these cars are heavy, and if something gets a bit squirrely, I would prefer to have a little bit of stability, where removing that front sway bar is going to remove that stability. There's a lot of weight, and just a little bit of movement creates a lot more inertia than you would in a lighter car like in a Fox body or an F body. So for the big cars, I would say I wouldn't really worry too much about that. Let's see. Symphonics at Zephyr R&D. Did the Z28 LS7 need the valve fix as well, or did they sort that out by the time it was put in the Camaro? I can actually answer that. Yes, any LS7 needs to, you need to be careful with the exhaust valves on those cars. It's not uncommon for guys to pick them up and literally within the first week have them at the shop and having those heads reworked. Sean Egan's letting us know he cleaned his intake up a bit. Definitely cool. Patrick Stevens saying how cool. B Mason shows in two B Mason shows in 1 week. I'd love to do them all the time. I love these, and I love the interaction with you guys. So one of the reasons why I've moved away a little bit from the older format and mainly doing the live shows is, you know, I get to hang out with you, and we get to talk about this kind of stuff, and yeah, it makes it fun for me. It's not to say I'm not going to go back to it, and I still have to do the intro to Revlon and introduce her into the world the right way. But well, I guess I kind of did, because there's a few videos of me with it at the drag strip already. But yeah, no, I enjoy it. Let's see. Let's see. Zephyr and Symphonics are hanging out. Let's see. Anish Jay saying, hey, can you talk about your Ram 1500's lifter failure a little bit? How's your truck been so far after the warranty repairs? So I can. That truck at 90,000 miles developed what sounded initially like a manifold leak, and that over the course of about 2-ish weeks, it started to get worse. And at one point, I didn't really, you almost forget about it. You get used to the Hemi tick. And I was coming up on my warranty period, but the telltale sign to a failing lifter in those engines is if you hear the tick and you tip into the throttle and the tick goes away, and then when you back, and I mean just barely, just not even the weight of your big toe, just enough to bring it up from idle to maybe 1,000 to 1,200 RPM, and then get out of it. If that tick comes back, or if it's a tick that almost has a chirp sound to it, that's when you definitely know it's a bad lifter, and get that thing to the shop. So I got the truck to the shop at 90,000 miles, got everything fixed, and ended up getting rid of the truck at 140,000 miles. Truck ran like a banshee ever since then. So definitely something to keep your eyes on if you've got one of the 5.7s, really up till about 2015-ish. 2014 would really be the last year that I would have any real concerns with, and you guys may have seen this more than I have, but I really didn't see any 5.7s after 2015, including 2015 and moving forward, that had the issues with those lifters. And Chris Harris is a legend. That's awesome. He owns one. Yeah, Chris Harris does have a Z28, and it's I love those Z28s. Let's see. Sam Grable asks, what do you prefer, Charger or Challenger, 5.7 or 392? If it's my money being spent, I'm going to get the 392 every single time, but that's not to say that the 5.7 doesn't have its place. And in fact, if you're into modding and just having fun with the cars, don't look past the 5.7. if you can find a very clean version of the 5.7 and it's an 8-speed car, I say go for it if it's that 5.7 versus a 392 with a nag 1. Mainly because you can put 370 gears in it. You can put a tune on it. You can do everything to that car. Older hot rodding tricks, you can do that to that car, and they're a lot of fun. So, but initially, if it's a 392 with an 8-speed versus a 5.7, I go with the 392. If it's a 5.7 with an 8-speed versus a 392 with a nag 1, I go with the 5.7, just because I could throw a gear in it, throw a tune in it, long tubes, a cam. You're not going to be paying near as much typically for the 5.7 as the 392, and you can just have a lot of fun with that car, and then hit it with a 150 shot and blow the transmission up. Let's see. Hayden, 68 PSI from a Maggie Edelbrock on a stock 5.7 or full bolt-on in cam. Go with the supercharger and let it ride from there. We had at the shop, we have had, let me think about this. We had two for sure, maybe 3. 2 for sure, and if I'm forgetting 1, 3. The small displacement Edelbrock supercharger is a sweetheart on the 5.7. You get basically identical power numbers to the 392 with a little bit more tip-in torque. And it's to say they're sweethearts to drive is an understatement. So if I were to go boost on a 5.7, that would really be the direction that I would go. I really wouldn't try to reinvent the wheel. That system works very well. It's very complete, but I will say this. If you get that system, consider a tune, a true dyno tune, as part of the cost of doing business with that. The reason for that is because the stock tune with those systems is soft, to say the least. There is easily another 20 horsepower. Actually, I'll take that back. There's another 30 plus horsepower waiting in that tune. And we're talking safe power numbers here, not trying to get on the ragged edge or anything else like that. So just keep that in the back of your mind. If you are looking to get one of those kits for a 5.7, go with the Magnuson, go with the Edelbrock, but just make sure that if you're buying a DIY install kit, that you factor in a tune as well. Let's see. Uncle Stinkford Wet Bottom, 2018 Dodge Charger Scat Pack 392. The active exhaust of my car pops and crackles like a mother. That is actually not the active exhaust. That is the secondary spark popping any of the unburnt fuel out of the exhaust, and I love it. I absolutely love the pop and crackle these cars have. Joaquin Hayden saying, or Jokin. God, I'm never going to get that right. Jokin. I guess I got it right that time. When I do my 426 stroker build someday, what sort of compression ratio should I be looking for to stay naturally aspirated? Stick with 11-1. That's the number that you're gunning for. Anywhere between, on a 426, anywhere between 10.5 and 11-1 is where you want to go. Any less than that, and you may as well stick with a 392. The power difference just really won't be there. And to truly take advantage of what that 426 is going to be able to give you, you're going to have to stick with a compression ratio that's somewhere near the 392. Jokin's saying, by the way, 17 Scat Charger cracks and pops like crazy with the muffler delete. I bet it does. They sound good with that muffler delete on D-cell. Sam Grable asking, how many RPM can be freed up on a 5.7? Not a whole lot. You're looking at shift points rising maybe 250 RPM for the 5.7, not necessarily a whole lot, but that intake manifold starts to sign off up top anyway, so there's really no sense in spooling it up much higher than that. By the way, I would only recommend the higher shift point if you've got ported manifold, long tubes, and a cat back, so you can actually free the thing up. If you don't have that, don't even worry about it, because you're going to be choked with exhaust anyway. Racer X. What's the word, my friend? I'm looking forward to track rental as well. Sounds like you and Rob both went with the diff brace. Not sure if mine helps, but it's definitely not hurting me. No, it's not, considering you got a mid 9-second car, my brother. I don't think it's hurting you at all. As a matter of fact, you haven't blown your diff up, and that's something to be said. I mean, the diff brace is back there. It's obviously doing its job. You've got a 309 gear, making a lot more power than that Demon is, and you're also a whole lot heavier. So, yeah, I'd say if nothing else, it's a testament to the fact that it doesn't hurt anything. Maybe it's helping. Might be a good idea to invest in one. Consider it cheap insurance. Let's see. Justin Baker, what stall should I do once I get one of my cams? Let's see. Do you happen to get it all together, sir? I've got another one for another customer also. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much good to go whenever you are. Just give me the word and we can get that ground put together for you. The stall for your truck, I would probably go with, Southern Hot Rod really, I think, only has one converter, and that's the 3,200 RPM stall converter. Probably not a bad way to go. Get that thing into boost quickly. Really, anything that helps you stay in boost longer is going to be good. But the cam itself, to be honest with you, will work with a stock converter. It just depends on how aggressive you want to get and how hard you want that thing to leave, what kind of tire you're going to be running. Gear ratios, weight of the vehicle, all of that. But realistically speaking, you could get away with, on the street, you could still get away with that 3,200-ish stall cam with that turbo. It's probably going to act more like a 3,300 RPM stall. And that thing will launch like a monster once you get it in a boost. Toby Rama. Yo, Brian, what's up, Toby Rama? Big Daddy 392, what up, B? Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you too. Sean Egan, thank you very much for the contribution to the cause. I appreciate that. Let's see. He's asking, what was your E85 conversion results on your 392? I'm close to the 11s and I need about 10 to 15 more horsepower. So I thought E85 might be enough. Actually, my car was on Bucky's 93 octane pump gasoline. Bucky's home is some of the best beef jerky on the planet, by the way. So E85 is interesting on an NA car, especially on the Hemi, because the Hemi just does not really care too much how much timing you throw at it. The Hemis are funny because you'll reach this ceiling, and even though you won't necessarily get knockout of it after, let's say, 17 degrees of timing, you start adding timing to it and you won't see more power. You just have more timing. So, and that's on 93 octane. On E85, what we would see is we would see torque down low. We would see a good amount of mid-range power, but then that power would fall off on the top. Wouldn't necessarily be under 93 octane, but it wouldn't really be over it either. And play with it as we might. Throwing more timing at it didn't get any more power up top. Leaning out the mixture didn't get any more power up top. It's just one of those deals where you're displacing so much oxygen with the fuel itself. Even though those heads flow like crazy, the intakes don't. So you're really not able to back up that fuel with the oxygen that it needs to burn. So that's why down low, you get all these big power numbers, but then again, up top, you don't. Unfortunately, there's not an intake manifold on the market right now that will allow that fuel to really be effective on that engine. So, and that's true of really any of the NA builds that I've seen at LS anyway, where you get this hit of torque and then you might get 10 or 15 horsepower up top, but it's nowhere near the 25 to 30 pound-feet of torque that you get down low in some areas of that torque curve. So take it with a grain of salt. I would probably say that if you're shooting for E85 and you think E85 is really going to get you where you need to be, it'll get you kind of the way there, but it won't get you all of the way there. It'll help you a little bit on the launch, help you a little bit on the shifts, because, you know, your RPM drops and you're hitting that higher torque when the RPM drops down to like 46, 4,700 RPM, but it's just not going to give you that big hit up top. It just doesn't have that effect on these cars. Yokin, what is your opinion of the Arrington Performance 426 stroker short blocks? I think they're fantastic. Arrington has a great reputation. Some things to consider with that Arrington short block is, well, make sure you get the flat top piston if you're asking for an 11-to-1, or at least to have them verify it, but compression engine for stock compression. But Arrington's great. I mean, listen, guys, you've got Modern Muscle, Arrington, HHP. Those would be the three that I would trust the most to get an engine short block or long block. They're all very good, very well respected engine builders, and provided they've got access to the block, definitely good. Or if you've got your own block and you're thinking about doing a stroker or de-stroke it, if you're looking for RPM, I would definitely go with one of their kits. Just make sure you get quality pistons and rods. Don't try to go cheap. When you go into the engine that deeply, that is not where you want to try to save money. That goes with your cam, your springs, lifters, everything. Stick with what works also. That's the other thing. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. At this stage of the game, the camshaft profiles, there's about 4 or 5 that work really well with 392s and 5.7s. There's really not too much more outside of that. You know, using an old school low profile, things like that, they just don't work well with the intake manifold. So, and you also kill bottom end torque. So, but anyway, getting back to it, good short block. I would not have any hesitation recommending that short block. Sean Egan says, I run Nitto Tri-5R 305 3520s on a 10.5-inch Hellcat wheel, daily driven. So do I, as a matter of fact. Toby Rama, message retracted. Let's see. Posner 2, how would you set up your Hellcat if your main purpose was roll racing? I would set it up, well, it depends. If I'm setting up a stock Hellcat like my car, I would focus on probably giving it a little 104 Sunoco. I wouldn't go with the oxygenated fuel just because I'd want to keep temperatures a little bit lower and reduce cylinder pressure just a little bit. And that's what that 104 would do versus the 109, the MS 109. I would lower it and then get an alignment that would make it basically just zero out the alignment. So little bit of toe out to make it stable, but that's really about it. I would mainly focus on keeping that car out of knock or out of false knock as much as possible. And aside from that, let her rip. There's really not a lot I could do. Now, if mods were in the mix, then I would go, obviously it'd be on E85, twin pumps, 1000cc or 127 pound injectors, 275 upper, 10% lower, stock intake, stock airbox, lowered, and probably would give a set of 309s a shot just so that I could make use of 6th gear on the big end. Let's see. Sam Grable is saying, do you know of any tuners in Southwest Florida? None off the top of my head. No, I don't. Depends on what kind of car you've got and what you're looking to do with it. But I would say, give Pikes Performance a shout. They may be able to help you out with a remote tune, but typically, definitely ask around. There might be somebody down there. I'm sure there is. There's good tuners all over the place, but give Pikes a call. He can help you out with that remote tune. But you're going to need to have, obviously you're going to need to have HP Tuner software and everything else that you would need for that. So if you need If you want to do a tune that does not require you to buy all that stuff or to have that stuff on tap, then contact HP Tuners and find out who they recommend in the Florida area. That'd be the best way to do it. Justin Baker says, love the shows also. Thank you very much. Says it's one of his favorite things to listen to. When I miss one of them, I'll listen to it at work the next day. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Hogan saying, by the way, tonight's eyebrow thumbnail might be the best one ever. Well, thank you very much. Toby Rama asking, have you heard the ZL1 Corvette? It was a trim package in the early 70s and very rare to see to see even more than one old ZR1. Apparently ZL1 isn't a Camaro only thing. That would be the, might be, well, yes, I have. And I know which cars you're talking about. Where's that son of a bitch? God damn it. Did I get it? The battle continues. About to be some Skeeter side up in here. The older vets, you know, it's one of those things where ZL1, I start to get some of the older stuff confused because I really don't get a chance to think about them too much, or at least too often. But you know, any of the old big block cars are awesome. You know, the L88 stuff I'll always be a big fan of. Let's see, Justin Baker, just install the Hellcat lifters and be done. Yes. Big cam too. No more lifter issue. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you start looking at what you can do and, you know, the different this, that, and everything else. Just stick with what works, guys. Please. Again, you start trying to go off of the script when it comes to Hemis. And the problem is that the Hemi is not as forgiving as the LS can be. And where you make a mistake with an LS, there's an intake manifold that will turn your mistake into, you know, the next best thing since sliced bread. You just don't have that option with the Hemi. So stick with what works and you'll build a great package. And also keep in mind, you know, outright power numbers are not what you're going to be looking for when you're putting a package together for one of these Mopars. It's just not the best way to go about it because, number one, you're dealing with a situation where you've got something heavy. And, well, how do you get around weight? Well, it's gearing and torque. And you go with a big cam, you're going to kill torque. You can re-gear it, reclaim some of your actual functional torque. But then there's a catch there. You're looking at the expense. You know, 370 gear can be a bit aggressive with an 8-speed, but with 8-speed automatic. But if you have, you know, a fairly decent sized cam and a gutted intake with a large throttle body, it might work. I just, it depends on how aggressive you want to go with it, basically, is where I'm going with that. Luke Richardson says, I almost got in a wreck yesterday. It was with a damn smart car. I call them shit cars. If I made contact with that shit car, there would be nothing left but a piece of plastic. I agree. And some of those guys seem to think that they, well, let me just put it to you like this. They don't last very long around here. I'll just put it to you like that. They do get beat up pretty good here in Houston. Some of them actually get punted pretty good. Chaos and the Unicorns. In regard to the Scat Pack kits, I believe it's something like $8 grand for all the kit and then $600 for the Scat Pack PCM for about 460 horsepower and torque. Not sure what you could build with aftermarket parts for that money. Let's see, 460 horsepower and torque it sounds about right at the flywheel. It's certainly not at the rear wheels. You know, about the same on the aftermarket side. You're not going to get too far off of that. You might get it within 10 horsepower of a 392, but it's, again, you've got to question whether or not you want to give up that bottom end torque for the top end horsepower, or is it really worth it to, I don't know, go the extra step with the gearing and go the extra step with, you know, a more aggressive camshaft and all of that. It's just kind of one of those, you know, it's, you know, dealer's choice really at that point. But what I will say is that I like the idea that Mopar is doing something to stay involved with the enthusiast, albeit on a very limited basis, and with that 5.7. Let's see. Justin Baker asked, what's the limit on boost with a turbo on E85? What's max boost you can run safely? 2016 Ram crew cab, 1500, 5.7. 7-ish is what I run around on the roads and with the kiddos in the truck, but it's done 12 on the E. Realistically, what did that mosquito already sting me? Give me West Nile. Realistically, on E85 on a 5.7, 14 to 16 would be kind of maybe my limit for the street. And that would really have more to do with the weight of the vehicle than anything else. Not saying that you can't run more than that. I mean, that 5.7 is stout. You definitely don't sell it short. There's quite a few guys out there turning the wick pretty high on those 5.7s. So, if it's mine, I would say I would limit it to about 16 PSI, maybe 18 PSI on the street. But again, that's going to be with a good, where's that son of a bitch is fast. Hang on. About to turn this bastard's lights out. Mother. I think I got it. Anyway, sorry, things been buzzing around my head. So it's annoying so that I can hear it going behind me, and it's just making me nuts. Anyway, that would be about my limit on E85. Sean Williams asking, is there a throttle body you recommend for a 5.7? Yes, there is, Sean. I would go with the Fastman throttle body, which is a true through-ported throttle body. Works great with the stock intake. Works even better if you've got some cleanup work done on that intake manifold. Uncle Stinkford Wet Bottom, not the active exhaust? No, actually the active exhaust is just a butterfly back there. There's a provision in the tune that has drive-by torque limitation. You've got, let me see, you got all kinds of screwy little things in that tune. But yeah, you can actually adjust when those butterflies open and close and under what modes. So yeah, it's but no, that if they're just stuck open or on hard decel, they'll pop open sometimes also, and they'll pop. So that's what you're hearing. Zephyr R&D asks, what do you think about running 10W40 instead of 0W40? A couple of different auto engineers seem to prefer less of a difference between the winter to operation temp viscosity versus easier cold starts. You won't notice a difference between 0 and 1040 unless you are in weather conditions where it gets below freezing, and even then you probably won't see too much of a difference. I like to run, obviously, the thinnest oil possible for startup purposes, but when you're talking about 1040, it's not going to be much of a difference at temperatures that are around 40 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. You're just not going to see a big flow variance there. I have seen guys talk about the 1040 versus the 040. I've also seen in some areas guys running 540. There's some 540 oils floating around out there. They're all good. My thought on oil is as long as it's a 40 weight when it's hot, and well, let me rephrase that. As long as it acts like a 40 weight when it's hot, which is technically going to be roughly right about the active viscosity, dynamic viscosity is going to be about 13. Actually, I take it back. It'll be like 11.5 to 12.5 at 100 degrees Celsius, which is 212 degrees Fahrenheit oil temperature, which is one of the areas where it's measured. So you have 0 degrees Celsius and 100 degrees Celsius, which is 32 degrees and 212 degrees if you're an American. And but realistically, as long as it serves that function, that is the viscosity that the tolerances are measured and checked at. So, and the idea is you set the you set up your oil viscosity for the temperature that the car is going to be running at, and the idea is to have somewhere around a what's kind of loosely referred to as a dynamic viscosity, which would be what and let me stop right there. So what I'm talking about is your oil does not go from being 0 weight to 40 weight when the polymers start to all kind of come together. What it is at 100 degrees Celsius, it will act as though it is a 40 weight at that temperature. So 40 weight at room temperature is 40. Would be the viscosity at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. It'll be basically 12 and a half would be the viscosity, because it gets hot and it gets thinner. So anyway, the idea with oil is to have about that viscosity at whatever your running oil temperature is going to be. That is why you use a thicker oil in racing applications, because you have a higher oil temperature. Higher oil temperature, you want that viscosity to still be around that 13 ish, 12 ish, 11 ish at whatever your maximum oil temperature is going to be. It's why you need to let those things warm up before you go bashing on them. Let's see. Uncle Stink for Wet Bottom says, why is it that my car is stock and pops and crackles, but a 2017 does not, unless you chop the mufflers off? I would like to actually learn about this if you can quickly explain. So one of the main reasons why is it's going to be in the operating system and how the basically how the spark advance, or actually the secondary spark hits on D cell. So some of the cars have a hard spark on D cell. When you let off the throttle, it'll still spark on the exhaust stroke, and that's that pop that you'll hear. It's just that any excess fuel or any amount of fuel that's getting past the combustion cycle into the exhaust, it's actually being fired. That's why you'll hear that. Some cars pop a little bit more than others. My 392 popped a lot. My E63 popped a whole lot. But typically that's going to be the reason why you're just hearing the pop from that exhaust. It also depends on what RPM you're chopping the throttle as well. You may notice that cruising at highway speeds, you let off on the throttle, it won't pop as much. And then as you slow down, it'll start to pop. It's because it actually it'll kill spark to the engine or to the cylinders on a hard D cell, so you won't get any pop at all. And then once you slow down to a certain speed, usually it's 15 miles an hour, or anywhere between 3 miles an hour and 15 miles an hour, depending on the operating system. That's when spark comes back into play, and you'll get a little bit of pop just as you're coming to a stop. Let's see. Endless Combo asked, do you know the RPMs the 392 active exhaust opens and closes at, or how that thing works? My car sounds like shit between 1800 and 2200. Sounds great. Other than that, I'm mostly in track mode. Yeah, so it really isn't an RPM thing. It's a torque command thing. If you're commanding more torque, then the blades will open more. There's also a provision in there called drive-by torque disable. Drive-by torque enable is one where it'll actually keep the butterflies shut under slight acceleration, as opposed to the butterflies opening up. But if you look at the table, if you look at the table and think of the table as a square with a bunch of grids, like an Excel spreadsheet, the outer ring of that being startup and wide open throttle, they're open. And then everything in between, it's kind of a graduating scale. If you're not commanding a lot of torque, they'll close. In the Tune, you can actually force those things open basically all the time. So, and that's how my 392 was. I had them basically open all the time. But that's more or less how it works. It's a command requested torque, not an actual RPM function. Toby Rama asks, is it a good idea to go with a bug catcher with tri-throttle body if you go with a roots blower or get a bit more power, bug catchers just looks good or a no gain. If you're going with something like that, basically something sticking out of the hood, I would suggest going with your typical bug catcher and go with go with a set of K&N filters in there. Don't ever run a car with no air filters. Very bad idea. Sean Egan, good night. Thanks for the info. Good night to you. Thank you for hanging out. Blacksmith Lewis saying it's 2 a.m. where I'm at. I like it. Hayden G, also Chris. Let's see. Chris here, my brother. What spark plug comes standard in a Hellcat? Do cooler plugs help? By the way, got a black Mopar beanie with your name on it. Merry Christmas to you and yours. Well, thank you very much, my brother. The stock plugs are it's a 7 heat range. Going colder or hotter really isn't going to help too much. You got to remember that the Hellcat stock do run a little bit on the lean side. So the 7s work just fine with that. Going with a 6 really isn't going to help you out too much. And realistically, I mean, the 7s are actually good up to, well, I mean, we're running 7s in pretty much everything. The only Hellcat platform that I know of that does not come with 7s is the Trackhawk. Strangely enough, the Trackhawk comes with 6s, which initially I thought was pretty weird. But then again, I also heard that some of them came with 7s. So I've seen them with 6s, thought that was weird, but I would definitely stick with the 7s that it comes with. And, when it comes time to replace them, just go back with the same ones. I really wouldn't worry too much about plugs because, man, to be honest with you, it's really a non thing with these cars. Let's see, and thank you again for the beanie. I appreciate it. I can't wait to get that. Give me a shout tomorrow so we can hook up for lunch. Mark McClurk, my brother from Canada. Hey, Brian, hope you and the wife had a great Christmas. Same to you. Hope you guys had a great Christmas as well. I don't even have to ask if y'all got snow. Justin Baker saying, shit, I got a 410 on the 8-speed and love it. I bet. I had 392s in mine, and I absolutely loved those. And boost. Yes, absolutely. Somebody with hieroglyphics. I don't know which country that's from, but says hi. So hi right back at you. Patrick Stevens letting us know Torque's where it's at. I like that. Justin Baker asking, do you want to do my cleanup porting on the intake? Shoot me a price. I will have to get back to you on that. I will not be able to start messing with intakes until probably March. So I will have to get back to you on that. It's going to depend on how my travel schedule is looking for the beginning of this year. Blacksmith Lewis says, I got a 5.7 long block I picked up for $250 on Facebook Marketplace, and I'm sticking in an RX-7. That would be awesome. That's assuming that the Mazda isn't too rotted out. Dual quad carbs, Howard's egg sticks. Howard's egg stick should be fun with stock 410. I agree. That'll be a lot of fun. Luke Richardson saying, before I crash for the night, look up this guy. His name is Ken Block. I know Ken. He's sponsored by Toyo Tires, and he destroys them with his crazy badass cars. Latest project was a 79 Ford 3.5 EcoBoost V6, 914. Yeah, that thing is a major killer badass. Blacksmith Lewis saying, yep, it's a Hemi. Toby Rama, why don't more people autocross trucks? Good question. I don't know why, and everybody with a truck should at least do it once because it is a freaking ride. I used to autocross my Lightning. I can see bigger trucks being used less, but the smaller trucks, Ranger, Dakota, are often lighter than some cars that are often used. Man, I got to tell you, if you've never autocrossed whatever it is that you drive, please get out there and do it. It is a lot of fun. And it doesn't matter if you've got an old pickup truck, if you've got, some old beat up Toyota Cressida. It just does not matter. Get out there, learn how to get that car around an autocross course. You'll find that you will have more fun with just a beater of a car. I mean, just find the biggest clapped out piece of crap you can find. As long as it holds together and doesn't shed parts on the course, you will be laughing the entire time and even harder afterwards. And there's a lot more money left over in the kitty for beer once you're done. Blacksmith Lewis saying trucks are extremely front heavy in comparison. Yeah, they are, but there's a certain skill and finesse in forcing a truck to go around an autocross course. Like I say, I used to autocross my Lightning and loved it. I had so much fun just locking that thing in second gear and absolutely putting on a show for folks with that truck. So that's one of the things I do miss the most about that Lightning was autocrossing, and especially on a long course. Posner 2, wow, thank you very much. I appreciate the contribution very much. Says, I am tempted to put a 285 Hellraiser pulley, pin the crank, and have HHP do a conservative tune for a little bump in power. 91 octane in my area. What potential risks to my engine are there? Well, let me dissect your question for you, and hopefully I can answer some of those questions as I'm answering them. So the 285 Hellraiser pulley, yes. Assuming that is the smallest pulley that you're going to go with, I will agree to that pulley size. Let me start there. Don't go the 272. HHP do a conservative tune for a bump in power on 91 octane. That's the reason why I wouldn't go 272, is because you're stuck with 91 octane. I would absolutely trust HHP to tune it. Yeah, Josh absolutely knows what he's doing over there. But let me just caution you on a couple of things. And commend you on one thing, which is pinning your crank. To me, it's cheap insurance. And there are painfully few stock Hellcats that have spun the stock balancer, but they are out there, and I get it. And that's a good reason to always pin your crank when you're putting a pulley on the car. First thing, though, that I'll tell you is if you go with that pulley and you're pinning your stock balancer, just know that it's going to be tough if you ever want to go with a different balancer. It's a little bit tougher to pin it once you've already pinned the crank. It's not impossible, but it is a bit of a pain in the ass, and will add a little bit of cost to it. But that being said, 91 octane is going to be your limiting factor here. And there's a couple of things that you've got to remember when you start to pulley the Hellcats, and that is every year. And I think you said you are in, didn't say what area you're in, but here's the deal. If you are close to sea level, say if you're within an actual altitude of, or elevation of, say 500 feet of sea level, every year what's affectionately known as the Mopar-mageddon, which is, I'm going to have some t-shirts made with that, or the Mopocalypse. What that basically is when guys have had their cars tuned on 91 or 93 octane, and they get their car in very low DA conditions. And I mean like negative 1500, negative 2000 density altitude days. You'll get those typically in January down here in the South. And what happens is this, those seemingly conservative tunes end up being overly aggressive once you get into those density altitude conditions. Fuel quality at that point can also be a bit suspect. So you can kind of get into like this two-headed dragon here where the car is technically making more boost because the DA is so low, and there can be a potential issue with fuel quality at that point. So be very careful with that. But I think you're going about it the right way. 285 would be the absolute smallest pulley I would put on a stock car running on pump gasoline, E10, any E10 variant. And I would absolutely say that, yes, a conservative tune is fine, but just remember that even a conservative tune can be aggressive if given the right density altitude conditions. So keep that in the back of your mind. I would certainly be monitoring if you're going to be out beating on the car, taking it to the drag strip. Make sure you data log that car and look at your injector duty cycle. You do not want to see more than about 96 or 97% injector duty cycle if you're going with, obviously, the stock injectors with that pulley size. If you ever see that number, you are far too dangerously close to exceeding what those injectors will support. If you are going to go with that pulley combination, do yourself a favor and get a set of, let's see, well, get yourself a set of 1000cc injectors. You can go ID 1000s. I prefer fuel injector connection 1000s, but at any rate, get yourself a set of injectors. It's fairly cheap insurance against what can potentially go wrong with that car if you don't have the injectors to support it. So I know that seemed a little bit long-winded, but it's just been my experience that every year there are a handful of cars that were tuned that end up popping when the DA drops that low. Stock car, you're absolutely fine. But once you start adding boost to it, you can run up against that problem. And the reason why I say 285 is the smallest pulley I would recommend is specifically because of fuel quality. And you got to remember, you've got a heavy car here. This isn't a 3,500 pound lightweight. You've got a 4,400 pound car. And remember that weight also translates into mechanical timing. So, and that's just because you've got more time for that piston to be stuck at top dead center. Same ideas apply there. You've got to really base your pulley decision around that fuel quality. Let's see. Blacksmith Lewis. Oh, this is about the auto crossing. The 4-cylinder V6 trucks are sometimes lighter. I say just get out there and have fun with it. Toby Ramasinju, doesn't SCCA and PCA have a rule that a car has to be wider than it is tall? No, heck no. They don't have any kind of rule like that. The only rule they have is you need to wear a helmet. And you need to ride with an experienced instructor for your first time at the event. But no, absolutely not. You can get out there and have fun and whatever will fit on that track. Uncle Steve from Wet Bottom says, thank you for the quick and precise explanation. My car pops and crackles like crazy, usually on the downshift from 50 to 35. It pops and crackles so loud that it startles people in town. That's a good thing. I like it. Endless Combo, thanks. You're the man. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight. Let's see. Mark Flamer, would I be able to see over 500 wheel horsepower with an MMX NSR cam, ported intake, ported throttle body, and the Advanced Fuel Dynamics Flex Fuel Kit on a 6.4? No, I doubt it. I mean, you can definitely do it on E85 with that cam and a ported intake manifold. I would recommend Peak Speed for the ported intake manifold over the MMX design, and go with the Fastman throttle body. That will get you where you need to be. The NSR cam, really any cam, if you're talking about the power numbers being rated on a dyno jet, you can get real close to that number though. Hell, you can get real close to that number without E85 if you're on a I don't know, a very understanding dyno jet. Let's see. Justin Baker, what plug should I be running? NGK 7 heat range for your truck. And I can't remember the exact part number off the top of my head right now, but you will need a number 7 heat range, and you'll need to gap them at about 27 thousandths. Let's see. He says he gets a weird check engine light blink, but no code. I know it's probably seeing misfire, but don't see any reason why and don't feel it. Thinking I went too cold with the plugs. Stick with the 7 heat range. And the other thing is sometimes keep one thing in mind. Hemis do have a funny quirk. Will flash because of a high misfire count. Hellcats actually have a weirder quirk. Well, all Hemis have a weird quirk with this, but Hellcats will have on the number 8 cylinder. They have a weird weird thing where the misfire counter will go crazy on the number 8 cylinder. Happened to my car, and I thought I blew it up. There's actually a funny story behind that too. I thought I blew a car up on the dyno once because of that, but it was just fine. Sean Williams, is a Mopar cold air setup a good one on the 5.7 Charger? It works, but I would probably just stick to a Hellcat filter on your stock air box. David Summerhill, old Bubba 392, 73-year-old, love my 392. I love it. Love to hear that. Yeah, the 392 is a riot, and Dave will definitely be able to back me up on this. The 392 is the only car that really offers an old school muscle car feel. The Hellcat in a way doesn't. I mean, it's fast, but it's fast in the way that you would hope a car would be fast with 700 horsepower. But the 392 is real snappy. Definitely is a riot to drive. And keep something in mind here. The 392 on a tire, the Scat Pack Core Challengers were known to be an 11-second car from the factory with no modification, just a little bit of gasoline and a sticky tire. So definitely an awesome car. I love those. Congrats on your car, my friend. Let's see. Justin Baker says, March is fine for the intake. Put me on the list. That's my birthday month. Awesome. I will look forward to it. Blacksmith Lewis, if the Mazda is too rotted, I totally would do an autocross truck. Don't need a tow truck for your race car when your truck is your race car. You better believe it. No, I mean, it'll be a riot. Trust me. It's so much fun that it's actually addictive. In fact, there are a ton of guys that will just absolutely quit drag racing, sell their drag setups and everything once they catch that autocross bug. It's definitely a lot of fun. Scat 426, what up, B Mason? What up, Scat 426? Justin Baker looks like he's checking out. Says, get out, my friend. Time to check out. Got to work in the morning. Same here, my friend. I got about another half hour in me, and then I've got to do a swan dive into the bed. Let's see. Jackie Chan says, what is wrong, yo? I don't know. You tell me. Go 74. Last time I was this early, Obama was president. All right. Well, good deal. Zephyr R&D. I want a 6.4 swap my ND Miata. Too bad an LS3 is extremely tight fit. Yeah, the LS3 is a tight fit, but you know what? It's a better swap than the Hemi, mainly due to weight as well. That if you can find a all aluminum setup, that's going to be a whole lot better. Jack Chan asking, who makes the best supercharger kit for the Hemi 5.7? I don't know. It depends on what your goals are. If you want outright, just flat out horsepower, then I would say either Whipple or ProCharger. If you want something more street oriented, I would say go with the Edelbrock at that point, or the Maggie. Justin Baker saying, I'm on a 6 range right now, so I think I'll change. Appreciate it. Yes, exactly. Number 8 cylinder freaks me out every single time, man. Dude, I don't know what it is about that. I mean, okay, so the first time that ever happened, and what Justin's talking about is that the Phantom, and yeah, definitely delete well, I would say yes, delete P0308 only and he's talking about a code here to delete in the tune, which is I believe it's the misfire code. So here, you don't necessarily, you do, but you don't. That's one of the codes where you kind of want to keep it in just in case something really bad does happen. You'll know about it. But what he's talking about is, again, that Phantom number 8 misfire that some Hemis just seem to have. And there's literally nothing wrong with the car. It's for some reason reading misfire. So my Hellcat has it for sure. But the one on the dyno is the one that freaked me out the most. And like I say, that counter, and you know when it's bad when you're looking at your data log, and as the car's spooling up on the dyno, it goes from it'll go 10, 24, 36, 47, 88, 97, 103, and it just goes it starts going off, and yeah, you think you blew the car up, but everything's doing fine. Jackie Chan says he loves the 392. So do I. I love that engine. Go 74. When do you recommend changing out the PCV valve on a 3.6 liter? I have 36,000 miles on the clock. Recommend changing that out at right about now, about every 30,000 miles. About every 30,000, 30 to 40, you want to swap it out. Let's see. Nessa Peterbilt saying, I love my 392, but this coming year I'm going to upgrade to a Hellcat. Not sure if I'm going to go with a red eye. It is all up to what your budget will allow. Red Eye's a great car. Hellcat's a great car. They're both awesome cars. My opinion of that, though, is that there's not enough of a difference between the two to justify spending a bunch more money on a red eye unless you just want the red eye. Justin Baker, those are all sent back to back, so I'm out now. Have a good one, buddy. Kay Jonesy, the Hoods Up Show. Actually, it's funny you mentioned that. Don't be surprised if you see that come back soon. See, Uncle Stinkford Wetbomb, it says he also likes it. Glad you are here. Keep up the great streams. Appreciate the responses. When I get my car tuned by Petty's Garage, I'll be sure to let you know. Definitely do. See, Toby Rum is saying at Zephyr R&D, say you've never heard of a rule like that. Talking about an SCCA rule. Yeah, no, it's not out there. Mark Flamer, what is actually happening when a stock PCM is getting cracked? What is being modified? When the PCM is cracked open, basically what they're doing is, what used to be is you would just have an encryption code and you would go in and tell the computer that any encryption code is its encryption code. That's essentially the same thing that you're doing. There are some pins in the stock computer, though, that need to be basically removed, and you're in essence making the pins go into a different slot. And there's, in some cases, you'll have a different port that you'll have those pins route through, and then back into almost like it's a piggyback, so to speak, setup. But anyway, it's just saying that any encryption code will be the correct encryption code. Let's see. Go74 says, I heard a rumor they are getting rid of the 5.7 Hemi for a straight six turbo. What are y'all's thoughts and opinions of this? I can tell you this. I've heard the same thing. I've also heard that the straight six turbo would be the upgraded engine to the 5.7. Either way, I would love to see that and would welcome it with open arms. I would love to see a large displacement like a 4-liter, 4.2-liter inline six with a turbo. Imagine the possibilities. Let's see. Blacksmith Lewis says, should I put a sound system in my Hemi build? Thinking about glass packs. Absolutely. If you like it, rock and roll. Let's see. Poster 2, follow up on the 285 Hellraiser pulley. Unfortunately, in California, at sea level, there's a Sunoco gas station not too far with 94, 98, and 101 octane. Better to tune to one of those octanes. Man, if you can reliably get that fuel, and if you can front the cost of whatever that fuel is, I would prefer to see it. But what I would rather see you do is have it set up, tuned for 93 or 91 rather, and just run 94 in it at all times, or mix in 91 with 94. I want to keep you away from problems that could arise from a fuel quality issue. And if you got more octane, then it's going to be safe. If for whatever reason, like let's say the guy, and this has actually happened before. This has actually happened. Technically not to me, but I know of it happening 3 times where bad tank of E85, as a matter of fact. But basically what I'm saying is that if you have a tune for 91 and you run 94 and 98, you just know that you're safe. And if you tune for 98 and the guy or 101 and the guy puts God forbid, 91 in that tank, then you're going to be in a world of hurt. And keep in mind, man, I mean, unless you're using your car to pay rent, through, winnings, you're not going to see much of a difference from one tune to the other in terms of actual power output. So don't hang too hard on that. It's not really worth it. Jackie Chan saying a straight 6. What? Diesel? Hell yeah. That'd be really cool. Go 74 saying thank you. No, thank you very much. Let's see. Go 74 saying no, I think it'll be a slant 6. I'll take anything with a turbo. Let's see. Zephyr saying, this is going back to the SCCA comment. Jackie Chan saying a Cummins and a Ram any day, though. I still can't believe they don't have a Cummins in the 1500s. And then Zephyr R&D saying I have a 94 short wheelbase Ram. Maybe we make that a 4BT autocross rig. Hell yeah, why not? But let's see. Mark Flamer saying he's talking to Poser too. I like it. Like the interaction. Jackie Chan saying, I love turbos over supercharger. The feel and the torque. Depends on what turbos and depends on the application for me. Obviously, turbos will always be more efficient than a supercharger, but man, there's nothing getting around that instant torque hit of a positive displacement supercharger. Justin Baker saying, never got bad E85 yet. I test every batch. Definitely a good idea, especially with your combination. It's at 87% every time. Use the same station. Eventually, it will happen. That is why it is so important, guys. If you're running E85, Justin brings up a great point. Please test your fuel. Again, it's happened to me twice, and I've seen it happen 3 times where the E85 was just bad E85. I don't know if it had gone bad or what, but even the smell of the exhaust, that normal, that rich, smell that you get used to with the E85, these smell like gasoline, even though the fuel itself was crystal clear. So again, if you guys are running on corn, just make sure you're testing your fuel. Consider it just a part of the, again, cost of doing business in that respect. Let's see, make sure I'm not skipping anybody. Blacksmith Lewis. Is it normal for small displacement engines to just jump in RPM? My 04 Civic goes from 1200 merging to the highway to the 5500 limiter from light throttle. Actually, yeah, it is normal. The reason why is because those engines, the throttle blade, especially if it's an electronic throttle, basically just will crack to wide open, and it will, as you're going through the RPM, all it's doing is just going through the range of the cams. So, but yeah, in fact, most cars that have adjustable cams, you'll actually notice that they'll do that pretty often. The other ones, even if you're cable actuated, the throttles in some of those 4-cylinders are so big that you actually go to 0 kPa or close to 0 kPa delta, I should say, from ambient to inside the intake manifold when you crack the throttle like that. So in essence, it's functionally at wide open throttle, even though your foot isn't all the way to the floor. And that's why you'll notice that. Greg Fitch brings up a great question. Why would Dodge use a 2-piece drive shaft on our Hellcats with warranty issues they have? Saw the Charger Hellcats have different size half shafts. Why is that also? Chargers and Challengers both have... Where's that son of a bit? Hang on. I might be able to snag this little bat. Damn it. Die, you son of a bitch. Yes. Yes. Dead. This motherfucker. Can you see that? Got that bastard. Burn in hell, you blood-sucking son of a bitch. Okay. Sorry. Ongoing feud with that mosquito has now come to an abrupt halt. Let's see. So getting back to it. I'm assuming it's an NVH issue. Single-piece drive shafts can be a bit of a nuisance when it comes to NVH, But the aftermarket seems to be doing okay in terms of working around NVH issues with these cars. I'm not sure why they went with the drive shaft setup that they've got. I've got my stock one literally laying right here, and I just in looking at it, I can see a bunch of issues. Part of the problem might have to do with packaging, but realistically, I don't see where there's a benefit to have a two-piece when you have a vehicle that makes that much power. Honestly, though, I really don't care how many pieces the drive shaft comes in. If it is strong enough to manage the power and there's not an issue with that thing binding up, I see, I say it's all great, but the problem is our Hellcats come from the factory with this pathetic drive shaft that can't really handle the power that the cars make to begin with. So, I don't know. I really wish they would have gone with a one piece. They could have just as easily put a CV joint on both ends, or a CV joint on one and a U joint on the other. Would have been able to handle the power just fine. NVH would not really be an issue at that point. And hell, at least you'd be in a situation where you wouldn't have to worry about wadding the thing up at the drag strip. As far as the difference in size on the half shaft, I've heard a couple of different things on that. I've heard it's for NVH reasons. I've heard the preferential, one side loads up preferentially over the other. I honestly don't know. I've asked that question. I've been given a couple of different answers, and none of which made any sense to me, honestly. So there's that. It has nothing to do with clearance. Scat 426. Do you think FCA can improve on the 392 intake manifold? Yes. Yes. They can do nothing but improve on that manifold. Although it works great at partial throttle. I mean, don't get me wrong. It does great at building torque and building power through the mid-range. So cheers to you for that. But in terms of making outright horsepower and even making bottom-end torque, you're not going to lose power by improving that intake manifold. You're only going to make it better. And here's the other thing. Sharpen up your manufacturing tolerances on those things as well, because every one that I see is different, and none of them are perfect from the factory. None of them. I mean, I've seen some that were really good, but none of them are actually perfect. Justin Baker, and change your oil. Yes, if you're running on E85, please follow the E85 protocol for oil changes and cut those intervals in half. David Johnson, does octane booster in a can work? To a very limited degree. Boostane and Torco are both good, but I can't say that they are awesome. So, Justin Baker, give enlightenment to E85 maintenance. So let's talk about your E85 maintenance. First of all, you got to shorten up your oil change intervals. E85 is a much lighter fuel than gasoline, and what I mean by that is that the molecule itself is smaller. It's a thinner fuel. It will get past your rings, and you will saturate your oil with ethanol. Definitely not good. Change the oil more often. Also, something to consider with E85. Just know that yes, you're going to have cold start issues. It comes with the territory. Most guys don't really run into too big of an issue, but if you're living up north where you've got a lot of ice and snow, get ready for the problems. Also, make sure that you realize that your fuel pump, your fuel lines, everything associated with that car, it was not designed to run on E85 all the time. That's not to say that it will destroy them, but just know that if you let your car sit for any real length of time, E85 is hydrophilic, not like gasoline, which is hydrophobic. Hydrophilic means it likes it. Think of it like if you lick it, you gotta like it, right? Hydrophobic means it's scared of water, means it pushes it away. So if it's hydrophobic like gasoline, it's not going to attract water. Think of like Italian dressing where you've got vinegar and the oil separate. Well, with E85 or with alcohol, it's just like a mixed drink. Yeah, the water mixes great with the alcohol. So again, you let your car sit for any real length of time, you will run into a problem with your fuel quality being greatly diminished. So again, and what kind of time frame are we talking about? I've seen it as little as just 3 months. So I would say that it's also a good idea, by the way, to have, if you have an E85 tune, make sure that you are running your 93 octane tune about once every 3 months to just flush the system. Give yourself a couple of good tanks of E85 to replenish everything. But the reason why I'm saying that is because your fuel pumps are designed to be lubricated with the gasoline. E85 has a lower lubricity than gasoline as well. So you may see higher wear on parts like pumps, fuel pumps, if they're not designed to work specifically with E85. And even then, it's a good idea to give it a shot. There's also some companies that I've heard of that make an additive for E85 that helps to lubricate those parts. Fuel injectors, by the way, are the same thing. Also, another good reason to, if you're running E85 a lot, get your injectors cleaned once a year. No ifs, ands, or buts on that. But anyway, there's some companies that offer a product that help to, it's an additive. You use it very sparingly, and it's in there just to basically help to lubricate the fuel pump, and to also help to take some of the deposits that can form if your injectors have been sitting over time, to take some of those out. But that does not get you out of the woods. You're going to have to still get those injectors to a service like Fuel One and have them flow balance and clean them once a year, because you will absolutely start getting deposits over time, which will kill your spray pattern, which will cause other issues with the way that the car performs. So just some things for you guys to consider if you're running E85. And hey, don't take my word for it. Look up any original equipment manufacturer vehicle that comes with E85 compatibility. You'll see a lot of the same things that I'm telling you right now in black and white in their owner's manuals. And they're in there for a reason. Let's see. Go74 letting us know about his 99 5.9 liter, saying it burned a quart of oil every 50 miles. I drove that son of a gun from North Dakota to California and back and could not go up hills, but it made it. I bet it did. Those old engines will go forever. Jackie Chan, true, you go on a drive up to the mountains and you can't get fuel for one of your tunes, you're screwed. Well, yeah, pretty much. And that's, one of the things that you got to look at. A lot of the guys that run E85 will also carry about anywhere like a small 2.5 gallon can up to a 5 gallon can with them everywhere they go. And if they're smart, they'll have their laptop in their car and they'll just switch over to their 93 octane tune and baby it on 93 octane. Let's see. Toby Ram is talking to Jackie Chan right now. Zephyr R&D, what do you think of a Challenger Hellcat running a 952 and 5,500 foot DA, pulleys, corn fed, and injectors and fuel pumps? Damn. And 5,500 foot DA? Not on, let's see. Let me look at something. Not on just pulleys, corn, and injectors and fuel pumps. That's a number you would see down here at sea level. At 5,500 DA, I would expect that car to probably be a 10.0 car. That would be tough. That would be a real tough nut to crack. Not saying it's impossible, but and then pulleys can be a bit subjective. So a 10% lower with like a 250 something upper might make up some of that difference. But then you got, a belt slip issue potentially coming in and stuff like that. So Patrick Stevens saying, bring back the Slant 6. I actually learned how to drift in a long wheelbase D100 with a Slant 6. My granddad taught me that. Mark Flamer talking to Toby Rama right now. They're having themselves a conversation. I don't know what that is. Let's see. Justin Baker, yes, got that bastard. I did. Took that sumbitch straight out. Thank you, Posner, saying thank you at Mark Flamer, and of course to me too. Thank you very much for being a part of the show. I like when I see I like when I see you guys chatting back and forth. That's always cool. I like to see that. Go 74. When will you guys flush the radiator? Mine has its original coolant and it's a 2014. I would say you're coming up on about the due date. Typically, you know, the latest coolant always says something like 5 years or 100,000 miles or something like that. 125. Some cases 150. I wouldn't really ever go that far with it. I would say I like to see every 36 months, and you know, every, I don't know, or every 65,000 miles, every 70,000 miles. That's cheap and easy. And it's, well, I say cheap. I mean, it's not cheap to flush your radiator, but it's good. It's a good maintenance tip to go by, basically. Let's see. Jackie Chan saying, I don't mind the race car on the street feel. You know what? I used to say that also, but then again, that was also back when, you know, the race car feel was, I mean, you had to be pretty hardcore to be cool with some of the stuff that I used to call a street car back in the day. But yeah, I mean, you know, if you're cool with something a lot more rowdy, then, you know, I say go for it. I just don't, the long-term viability of sustaining a car like that on the street, I can tell you is questionable. Let's see. Jake K. Jonesy with a 5.7 with a dyno tune. I hear a slight pinging sound when I get on it. Is it the gas? No, it's the tune. And I will not tell you if I venture a guess and say who that tuner might be, but that's almost a calling card. So one of the issues that well, I say it's the tune. It can be the fuel quality, but typically if you've got a tip in throttle, basically low speed spark knock, that is going to be in the tune. And I would suggest pulling probably at least 1.5 degrees out of it and see if it cures the problem. If not, start by pulling 2 degrees and then just pull 2 degrees out of it. I'm not even going to get too crazy with it. And this is on a 91 tune. Yeah, for sure. You're running a little bit too aggressive on your tuning there. Let's see. Go 74 saying, bring back the 426 Hemi and a lighter, more track capable supercharged 340 TA. I'd love to see that. Jeffrey Bender, the Enforcer, saying, what's up, Brian? Just finished watching Mush's video. His car is finally finished. Cool. I need to check that out. Glad to hear his car is finally done. For you guys that don't know what he's talking about, it's SRT Mush. He's got a Charger Hellcat, and he's got a Demon that he had a bit of an issue with at the drag strip and ended up clipping the wall a little bit. Looks like Jeffrey's saying he just got that car back, so I need to watch that. I need to check that out. Let's see. See, Toby Rama saying, did you know that the Cummins engine seen in Rams, at least the 360, the 5.9 was originally meant for Class 8 trucks, but it was just slapped into the Rams engine we now have a legend. It was also a Marine engine, by the way. Comic Merc saying, best car to learn to drive a stick shift. The best car to learn how to drive a stick shift would be finding an old Jeep. Finding an old Jeep, because chances are it's going to have fairly aggressive gearing. The Jeeps have a lot of off-idle torque, and they're just fun because you're going to be in a parking lot for about the first 4 or 5 times you drive it, and they're just more fun because, you know, it's a Jeep. Jackie Chan saying that's how it's done, right? Let's see. Jeffrey Benner saying, hell yes, hell yes, 3 years, get that crap out of there. Talking about the coolant swap. Go 74. When I change the coolant, should I use the original brand or Peak? Nothing really wrong with Peak, but I prefer to use, when it comes to coolant, and of course, any transmission fluids, or not necessarily rear diff stuff, but well, maybe the rear diff with the ZF rear. I prefer to use the Mopar part number and Mopar brand on that. Justin Baker, Lambda AFR on E85 at what? It's still, you're still going to show on your gauge, you're still going to show like 12.0, but the actual air fuel ratio, because Lambda just measures actual oxygen content, so you're still going to see basically the same thing. If you convert it, it's going to be 9.85 times 0.80, so like 7.8-ish. But typically when you're running your E85, if you're using a normal AFR gauge, it will still only read in Lambda anyway. And it's converting the Lambda into AFR, so you're probably still going to see that. In fact, here's a blast from the past. Check this out. Hang on a second. This is for Justin. Talking about old school, air fuel gauges and stuff like that. This is the kit that I've been using. Remember the old Innovative? Anyway, but yeah, even if you go to Innovative's website, anyway, that's the old one that I've been using to tune carbureted stuff, and a lot of the older Fox bodies and crap like that. That's what I used, and the Lightning. But anyway, that's what you'll see on the gauge. Let's see. Mark Flamer asking, hey, Brian, why are Mopar so much trickier to tune than LS motors? No local shops touch Hemis. I got to drive 100 miles to get it on the dyno. There's a few reasons for that. The first reason is, in all seriousness, it's the Hemi cylinder head. The Hemi cylinder head is a tumble port head, and a lot of guys don't like messing with it because a couple of reasons. Number one, if you try to tune a Hemi the same way that you tune an LS in terms of timing, you will blow the Hemi completely up. They don't like a lot of timing. The other thing is how the Hemi actually, for example, how you tune fueling in a Hemi is literally the exact reverse than how you would tune on an LS, where an LS will use, and their operating system will use air fuel ratio. Hemis use fuel air ratio. It's actually the exact opposite in math. It's a bit more of a pain in the ass, and a lot of guys, it's tough for them to wrap their head around that portion of it. It's one of those things. It's like learning a dialect of a language. I mean, we're not speaking different languages. It's just harder for them to understand. Or if all you've ever done is Hemis, then it might be a little bit tricky to pick up on the LS stuff. But aside from that, a lot of guys don't like messing with them because they don't get the big difference in power that you can get out of an LS as well. So, it's tough to have that conversation every time with a customer. When you say, look, you're going to pick up, 10 or 15 horsepower with the best tune that I have for your car, it doesn't really seem like a good financial play when you're looking at spending the kind of money you're going to spend to get the computer unlocked and the tune put together, the dyno time and everything else. A lot of guys don't go for it in that respect. And so what they fail to mention to their customers, though, is that there's a transmission tuning aspect in this as well, and a throttle response aspect to this as well. So, and also the power that you get from the partial throttle tuning that a lot of guys just don't know how to do and don't have the time to do it, or don't have the equipment to do. And also, for the main, the main ghost in the room here. Every Hemi is a freaking snowflake. There are, for every year of 392, there's probably 5 or 6 operating systems, and you've got to stay on top of all those operating systems and all of their subtle nuances and changes. Because in saying that, basically it's this: it's not a one tune fits all situation, and that's another reason why they don't want to mess with Mopars. It's just the way that it is. Fact of the matter. And I keep going back to my buddy Jimmy. His 392 Challenger was either, I don't know, let's say it was 3 months either younger or older than my car, built to the exact specs that mine was. And it's his operating system. There were some slight variances with it. And his car even sounded different than mine. So again, just that's some of the reasons why. Let's see. Blacksmith Lewis saying best cars to learn stick: Honda Civic, Integra, or Mazda Miata. Really, anything with a stick's good to learn in. Jackie Chan saying just turned 34, time for a third vehicle, something from the 90s. I like it. Gia Fox Body. Would you guys say that the Trackhawk was a success or a fail? Well, it's a success, but the only problem is that it's super expensive and can't even imagine paying that much money for a Cherokee. But they are a success nonetheless. They're a lot of fun. They seem very popular. I mean, they're selling, I think, every one of them that they're making. So I don't, if the marketplace has anything to say about it, I think you should be good. Justin's letting us know rear diff should always get 80W90 per my gear supplier only, even ZF. Don't forget the friction modifier. Justin Baker saying I use the NGK just like pints. Very good. Definitely would put 7s in there though. Let's see. Derek Sizemore saying I noticed H Quinn 2000's yellow Chargers at Pikes Performance getting a serious build. Have you seen a build like that yet? I've seen a bunch of builds like his. Sometimes more than I care to admit to. Toby Rom is saying he'd like to see an old Jeep or a Bronco for learning manual transmissions. See, Jeffrey Bender, the Enforcer. Eventually, I want to get the Diablo and a PCM. Only have like 5,000 on his 2017 Scat Pack, so no rush. Warranty, absolutely. Don't discount that. I'm looking to get a little bit with it too, maybe 20 horsepower. Your thoughts? I mean, that would be about as much as you can hope to expect to get. I wouldn't even expect that much. But what I would expect is a bit more throttle response and more torque under partial throttle. And that is, to me, more important than any horsepower gain. Go74 is saying, I never changed rear diff fluid before. Do I need any special tools, and when is the best time to change it? You don't need any special tools other than hey, Justin, is it a Torx or is it a Hex? I think it's a Hex on our cars. At any rate, no, you don't need any special tools. It's a good idea to get the vehicle to operating temperature and then back it up. No, let's see, you're going to need a lift for this. Pop your fill plug and pop your inspection plug your drain plug and let her drain. Let's see, Blacksmith Lewis, I'm scared of computers, so I'm just using the ignition box and carbs. Holly with part number 6013. That's totally cool. You can do that. Justin Baker, at 14 PSI, what time would you use? I'm at 14 to 16 on 12 pounds now. I would say for on E85 with a truck, I would say 13 to 14 at 14 PSI. Maybe 12. Depends on how it would react. I'd start off at 12 and see if it would take 14. Oh, Jackie Chan say it's scary you would run that boost, but ask about the timing. I was just curious, wondering what, second opinion. Go 74 saying 100K for a Jeep. That is outrageous. And I tell you, he says he'd rather buy the SRT. I tell you what, one car I really like is the SRT Durangos. Justin Baker saying it's a 12 millimeter Allen. I think that's right. Blacksmith Lewis, I will need a laptop to set the timing. Looked everywhere. What should I set it at? I need to know everything about that combination before I can tell you that. Let's say. Go 74. Sweet. Thank you. I'll probably change the diff in the spring when the weather warms up in the garage. Absolutely. Justin Baker saying, absolutely. 2 brains are always better than 2. I agree. And so do I. Derek Sizemore, not a fan of the Scat Pack 426 builds. Not really. I mean, realistically, the problem with the 426 and the Scat Pack is that it's really got to be good to be better than the 392. It's a lot of money, and when you start to look at it objectively, not subjectively, but objectively, the Hellcat becomes a very viable option just in terms of total cash outflow with a certain little added benefit. I can always put my Hellcat into 500 horse mode if I want to simulate having a 426 stroker in a Challenger. That's just how they run. They make basically the same power as the 392 with just a nice bigger chunk of torque down low. I liken it to having like a fairly well sorted 426 in one of those cars, not something that's got a real radical cam or anything like that. So, but the reason why I'm not a big fan of them is because a lot of guys just get it wrong. They go with way too much camshaft. They don't look at it from an objective point of view in terms of how much power is their goal? You know, what kind of power goal do they have? What's the intended use? A lot of those guys that I've seen with the 426s have said, I just want to make all this horsepower and I want to haul ass. Well, the problem with that is that you're failing to realize that there's all these other performance aspects of that engine, not just wide open throttle. And it's a big and, there's not a really good intake manifold for that combination. The Edelbrock is okay, but it heat soaks like crazy. The stock manifold is great, but to really get the most out of the stock manifold, you need a camshaft with a tight lobe separation and more overlap to mitigate pumping losses. So you're kind of up against a cam that's going to be a bit of a pain in the ass to tune, which is going to make it, some cases, a bit too rowdy just at tip in and just driving the thing around. So, you know, outright power is what people want when they build a 426. What they don't realize is that there's just some components that aren't really going to work well in making that 426 work as well as it could, or as well as it should, or at least up to expectations. So again, just something to consider, something to make sure that you realize coming into it that, you know, 426 is great. It's got a sexy number. Everybody, you know, the whole bigger is better thing. And if it were an LS, yeah, I'd say go for it. But yeah, for the Mopars, again, we're just kind of shackled. And until somebody comes up with an intake manifold that will really work with a 426 the way that it should and not heat soak like crazy, this is kind of where we're at. Excuse me. Let's see. Mark Flamer asks, what is the most annoying question you hear people ask about Challengers and Chargers? Always get the, isn't the handling bad on those cars? That's one of them. That's clearly one of them. The second one is, it's not really an annoying question, but it's the question of how much power can I get out of a tune is the second one. Only because you almost have to qualify everything that you're about to say before you say it. I mean, the answer to the question requires an answer to a question that wasn't even asked. That's when you know it's going to be a long conversation. But Oh, it's the handling, and actually the comment is usually something along the lines of, well, yeah, the car, yeah, but they don't handle. Those cars don't handle, and then from there, I just lose it, and I have to immediately start to ask my questions. What do you define as handling? What are you doing with the car that you need it to handle? And air quotes here. What are you doing with the car that you need it to handle that well? There's nothing that my Hellcat won't do, or my SRT wouldn't do, or my Lightning wouldn't do. In normal street driving, hell, like I say, I autocrossed my Lightning. And if technically, now that I think about it, I think I've autocrossed just about everything that I've owned at some point, except for the work trucks and the SRT and the Hellcat. Other than that, I think everything I've ever owned, or some derivative of it, has been on an autocross track. Let's see. But anyway, those are some of the more annoying ones. I know that there's more, but I don't. It is. It's kind of silly to. But yeah, that's the number one for me. Let's see, Jackie Chan. If you're asking the right guy, sure. Let's see. Can't keep up with all of them. Let's see. Hang on. Go 74. Oh, it's only good in a straight line. Yeah, it's really good in it and doing a lot of stuff. Let's see, Blacksmith Lewis, Elbrock, 800 CFM carbs, dual quad, dual plane, manifold, Howard's cam, polished ports. Okay, let's see, Elbrock. If you're going dual 800s, that's going to be a bit overkill. I'd say dual 600s on that. What's good timing for that? Depends on... Let's see, the 78, 69, 65-13 Howard's cam, that's going to be more than likely ground on a 113 lobe separation angle. At wide open throttle for something like that, I would say on a non-VVT engine, you're looking at probably 28 to 30 to start, and it would probably need... realistically more like 32 to 34, but it depends on your fuel quality. I'd say idle, you're going to want it around 15 degrees, and you would want full advance somewhere around 2,500 RPM. Let's see. Jackie Chan, 300 horsepower over 8,000 RPM from 7 liters. I tell you, I better be making more than that. Let's see, Go 74. I have a 454 C20. Is it possible to squeeze more horsepower and torque out of the engine? It is severely choked right now. Also, the transmission is being replaced with a Turbo 400. Should I have them put more? Put more, don't know what. Aggressive gears when I rebuild it. So... if you have a 454 and a C20, chances are it's going to be a low compression 454. It just depends on what you want to do with it, brother. Obviously, I would say you're going to have to bump the compression up to really get that 454 to act like a 454 should. You're looking at 10 to 10.5 to 1. A decent sized camshaft and a good single 4-barrel. On a dual plane will put you really right where you need to be with that truck. You can always squeeze more out of it, but you got to squeeze more money out to make that squeeze work. So Turbo 400, obviously one of the best transmissions to ever be put behind an engine. And, more aggressive gears, that's going to be up to you. And it's going to be up to the cam choice that you go with, the cylinder heads that you go with. As far as gear choices go, you've got to literally gear the car around what the camshaft is going to want and what it's going to be able to deliver. If you've got a camshaft that's going to be great for torque and towing, then I would say 373s would be about as aggressive as I would go. If you've got something that's going to actually spool up to about 6,000 RPM and make power, then obviously I would start with 373s at that point and probably move to 410s. Well, I say that. Towing setup, go with 323s-ish, somewhere right in there. And if you've got a performance aspect in mind, cap it at 373s just to keep that thing from being too gnarly on the highway. Or put a gear vendors behind it and go 410s. Yeah, Mark Flamer. My response is always, yeah, when was the last time you took a road course to work? No kidding. And like I've said before, guys, I've never had an issue with my car going around corners. In fact, one thing that I haven't mentioned is that, my C5 Z06 was kind of sketchy at high speeds, hitting on-ramps and off-ramps a bit more than my Challenger was and is, my 392 or my Hellcat. Ghost 74, also, should I replace the old carburetor with fuel injectors? No. I mean, have that carb rebuilt. There's nothing wrong with a carburetor, brother. I mean, it's just how you tune it and how you've got it set up. Properly set up toilet will do just fine. But the reality is that the devil is in the details there, and it's that properly set up is the kicker. But yeah, I would never, and this is where a lot of guys, please understand that carburetors have been around for a heck of a lot longer than fuel injection, and there are plenty of guys that were running carburetors in all conditions, whether it was super cold, super hot, or anywhere in between. I mean, there's been a carburetor that performed just fine. So yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about that, unless it's a situation where, that kind of thing makes a difference and you've got it in the budget, and then, yeah, go with the Holley system. Jackie Chan says, Mark, you should see our country roads. Let's see. Blacksmith Lewis saying that the 800s are cheaper. Yeah, it might be a little bit overkill. Be careful how you jet those 800s, by the way. Do not overjet it. Justin Baker asking, do you know can an HP 70, be replaced by an HP 90 and segment swap or dealer program? So I've heard conflicting reports on this, man. I've heard that somebody was making an adapter for the HP 90 to the HP 70. I don't know that that's been released yet. I don't even know who the manufacturer was. It was just more or less hearsay. If there is, I would definitely say look into it. But again, the price is going to be what you're going to be up against. I mean, it is an HP transmission, so it's going to be expensive either way. So just prepare yourself for that. But that being said, I know it's coming. I just don't have. I don't know who's making it. Go 74 saying that his big block's gonna be used for towing and having some fun on the weekend. Yeah, just get you something that's gonna work from idle to 5,000 RPM, and that'll be perfect for what you're looking for. Let's see. Jackie Chan's letting us know about some of the streets he's working with. Blacksmith, yeah, 600 should be good. A little bit more room to play with as far as transitional fuel on the 600. A little bit easier to tune those 600s than a pair of 800s. Justin Baker saying, yep, yeah, he cooked the clutch in the D clutch on his truck. Yeah, I mean, if you find out or hear anything about that HP 90 swap setup, that would be great for a lot of the guys that are going with big power on the 392s and 5.7s. Jeffrey Bender, the Enforcer, saying handling. I think you can easily scare yourself into a big smile when you put that foot to the floor on a windy road. I think the channel handles like it's on rails. Actually, they do handle really well, and there's something to be said for hauling something around corners when you can literally feel the car moving underneath you as opposed to the little cars. So, and then Blacksmith saying, thanks for that. I'm definitely going with a twin toilet sticker. I love it. Yeah, no, I mean, that's, like I say, I've always loved the toilets. I've never had a problem with them. fuel injection will always be better because it's the newer technology in certain circumstances. But the reality is that, carburetors will always work, and that's just kind of how it works. Jackie Chancey put something in the wall. Don't know what them is, but he's putting them into the wall. Let's see. Derek Sizemore asking, would a built 392 be better for boost versus a built 426 then? Yes, absolutely it will. Being someone just doesn't want if you just don't want the Hellcat. I drive a Mustang, so I'm not asking for me. Yes, it is, depending on the method of boost. It's just harder to feed 426 cubic inches. Now, if you've got the fuel system and a compressor that has enough overhead in it to where you can spin it and feed the 426 and not be outside of any efficiency range, then absolutely. But that being said, just keep this in mind. I mean, a 426 will be good down low. It'll make good torque. And with a head unit properly pulleyed, it'll make better power up top to a certain point. But again, you got to keep in mind that the 392 is going to be easier to feed. It's going to be easier to boost. You're going to be running a lower pulley ratio. So theoretically, you would have lower discharge temperatures with the 392 at the same boost level. So it just depends on the supercharger, depends on the method of boost. If we're talking turbos, obviously turbos really don't matter, but off throttle, again, the larger displacement is just going to have an advantage there. But if it's mine, I would just build the 392, because if you're building something for boost, then the only reason for that thing to exist is to generate boost. Let's see. Blacksmith just saying, building a Sunday toy, no need for fuel injection, then stick with the carburetors. Ghost 74 saying, hey, how's the Ram holding up? The new one's doing great. The old one is gone. So far, no issues with that one, and I put about 4,000 miles on it a month. So let's see. Togarano Sinju asking, would a new, I guess he's saying Allison trans be adaptable to a 5.9 Cummins or not? I'm not sure that it is. I haven't heard of it, at least, because the new autos are far stronger than the 5-speed stick found behind the Cummins 5.9. Yeah, it's actually more appropriate, too, for a lot of guys to have that automatic behind that big diesel. So, again, I don't know. Depends on what you're using it for, but really, if you're dragging a lot of weight around, that 5.9 is going to break just about any transmission you put behind it unless it's well built. Ghost 74 is asking, would the Viper have done better if it had an automatic option? Well, not only would it have done better, it would still be with us. That was one of the conversations that I had with one of the guys from marketing with FCA. This is going back to 2014. Had a long, detailed conversation about the Viper specifically with with one of the marketing guys, and one of the assistants was there with him as well. Basically went like this, man. I knew the Viper was on its way out well before it was released. It was one of the things that we had talked about was the Viper had no provision for an automatic where the Corvette does. And you simply, in this day and age, can't offer a car like that without an automatic transmission. Well over, I think at last count, it was something like 65 or 70% of the cars that were sold from Corvette had automatic transmissions. Derek Sizemore, thank you very much. I appreciate that contribution to the cause. Definitely appreciate that a lot. But yeah, no, the Viper was funny. A lot of the Viper purists will say, well, you don't have a Viper if it doesn't have the V10. You won't have the Viper if it doesn't have it, if it has an automatic. let me put some things into perspective. The original Viper was slated to have an all aluminum small block to begin with. That's the engine that Carroll Shelby, when he was the advisor on the project, was pushing for. Somehow or another, the V10 got in there, but obviously to make the kind of power and torque that they were looking to make, that's the direction that they had to go. It's funny to me. I don't see a reason for when the Viper is released for the V10 to even be a part of that conversation. Some V8 configuration, whether it's supercharged or naturally aspirated with an option for an automatic, is going to have to be a given, because let's face it, those are the times we live in, and automatics are just that dang good nowadays. Let's see. Justin, looks like he is signing off, says, thanks for all the advice. Have a good night. Addicted to the show, so stay tuned. So he stayed. Seems like it's winding down. Yep, starting to wind down a little bit. Guys, we are into it, 2 hours and 30 minutes. I got to get up and go to work in the morning, so I'm going to check out. Thank everybody for hanging out with me. Those of you who contribute to the cause, thank you as well. And we will catch y'all on the next one. That is a wrap. Adios.